Welcome to Smart Branding, a podcast dedicated to branding, naming, and domain names. I'm Tatiana Bonneau, and with my guests, we try to help you create and grow strong, memorable, and meaningful brands online. I believe time is one of our most precious assets, and so I want to thank you in advance if you decide to spend the next 30 minutes with us. I promise to do my best to make those worth it. Let's go. So today I have the pleasure of speaking with Vincent Cheng, author of Heal the Source, founder and CEO of Deepening Connections and Vincent Cheng Enterprises, infinity coach and psychotherapist. He has explored 32 countries and counting across the globe, and since 2013 has traveled to Japan annually and lived with a Zen Buddhist monk in a 600 years old temple until COVID. Like we've all stopped traveling since restarting. But that's quite a introduction. Thank you for making the time. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Vincent.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled. It's always like to talk and share. So thank you.
So give me a bit of a background. I mean, I did give a little bit sort of an introduction, but it's a really interesting mix of things. Like usually people, when they're into, Buddhist monk and temple and then like entrepreneurship, it doesn't like, how do you mix that? How do you do that?
That's a great question. I think a lot of people, the perspective around spirituality or a way of life is, Buddhist is like you renounce all the material world and you really go within to discover who you really are. There was a whole phase of that. But for me to go to that place first, I was fed up with my material life. I was I went to school, really prestigious university for electrical engineering. I became an engineer, worked with the computers and all chipsets and all that stuff. And I wasn't happy. And I think that's the beginning of that search. Like, why am I not happy? I have everything I've always wanted, everything you should have. You tick all the boxes, you follow all the rules, but something's missing. And so, okay, well, if getting all of this money and cars and, parties and that doesn't give me happiness, okay, well, that's not the route. And my personality is very extreme. So if I'm going to go fully attached to something, make a lot of money and party, I'll go all the way in. And then, well, it's not getting me happiness. So you know what? Let's toss it all out, So I sold everything, I booked a one-way ticket and I'm like, I want to find out what this is. Well, this is not getting me anywhere. So bye-bye. Let's go this route and let's go this route. So it began with pursuing a passion of mine of what I love to do, which was music. So I'm also a conductor of orchestras and choir operas. So that was the first step. So I gave up engineering to pursue a career in music and really share that passion, because that's something I would love to do without getting paid. And I'm like, okay, why am I holding on all of these things? And the minute I let that go, it just completely changed everything about me, completely changed life and how I see it. But it's if you talk about the Buddhist sort of philosophy, it's about attachment and detachment. And so the basic tenet of it is attachment. We all suffer. We're all going through depression, anxiety, fear. And the basic tenet of suffering is that attachment is suffering. Attachment is the biggest cause of suffering. And I've come to realize that if I'm attached to something, that means I have a fear of losing. So if I have a fear of losing anything, that means I have an attachment. And I've really explored this feeling and concept. And it's funny, when I detached, I sold everything. I detached from family and friends to book a one-way ticket. It was the most liberating feeling. And it almost as if that suffering went away. But it was such a process to let go. I'm going to think about it. Like, who's going to sell their house and book a one-way ticket? Detach. Like, very few people do that. You're either desperate, there's a war happening and I need to survive, or I'm so inspired that I'm just going to say, I only want this and I don't care about all this stuff. This is not getting it. So it's very fun when I first started doing this, like, and I see people working with me too, like they're really desperate or they're so inspired. They're like, I really want this. I'm so motivated, and they'll take action. So that sort of was the beginning process of me exploring and entering into that spiritual detachment, zero state, I call it. And I think there was one attachment that was left. And it was you could call my ex-fiance at the time, who was ready to also pull the trigger and say, come with me and live in Europe. And we're just going to, be free and just, travel and have that lifestyle versus this, 9 to 5, work 30 years, retire, get a 40-year-old mortgage and debt. Like, it's a very different way of living there. And she was ready to go. But once I got there to settle, and believe it or not, I got my dream 2 weeks before I flew.
Oh, wow. How did that happen?
It's like, you call it, the manifestation, law of attraction. But I put myself in a state where I was willing to have nothing to achieve this dream of conducting the Berlin Philharmonic, conducting opera. And 2 weeks before I flew to Berlin from Canada, I had no friends there. I had no apartment, no job, no anything. And I told myself I was willing to live in the Tiergarten, the Central Park. I don't care. I'm going to crawl my way through because I wanted it so badly. And somehow a conductor from Berlin reached out to my teacher here just to get in touch. Are there opportunities? And he's like, yeah, there's opportunities. We can collaborate. Oh, but my best student is coming over there, like Berlin. Do you think you can help him maybe settle and get an apartment and he's like, yeah, of course. You know what? I'm doing a festival in France and I'll be gone from, he can live in my place. I also am doing an opera in Berlin. I need an assistant conductor. Maybe he can send his resume.
Oh, wow.
And so I think my mouth couldn't close for like 2 weeks. I was like, I'm like, are you kidding me? I went from nothing to, I went to the festival in France. I conducted, and I was assistant conductor for the opera. And to this day, I'm talking about, I'm like, how did that happen?
That's crazy. Those type of things, like when you think back or when you tell them to someone, you're like, if I see that in a film, I would think it's too much. I just wouldn't believe it. It's not believable. But I know very well the type of moments you're talking about. It's like life is crazier than any fiction.
Absolutely. A lot of our films are based on life, right? Yeah. and they have to tone it down because it's
It's that people won't believe it. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Man. But that's the thing. If we look at inspiring people to follow their dreams or to we all talk about what we get at the end. And oh, well, of course I'll do it. Look, anybody would go and take that jump if they found out that they would achieve it ahead of time, right? There's no risk. There's no, a certain thing. But this is the challenge. I had no idea. I never knew when I was going to get it. And I had to really process and jump through that terror of going into the unknown, leaving everything. And I found that to be one of the most successful and most powerful traits you can build in an entrepreneur. And I've seen all the successful people, they take leaps, risks, without knowing, and they figured out along the way. That's a trait that we don't really value as much. We be safe. Make sure you analyze everything. Do you have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan Z? Then you'll go. And, I listened to another podcast earlier. It's about the more educated you are in the traditional sense, the further away you'll actually build wealth in that sense. And what they talked about is that because we're taught to be analytical, make sure everything's right before we do anything, it has to be safe. Most of the time, the cost and benefit says logically it won't make any sense to take that risk. So then nobody takes any action for it, and then you stay where you're at.
Oh, the crazy thing is, sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
The crazy thing is, as you were talking about, analyze this, do that, and I have that, like literally even in my line of work, but I think that applies to anyone. Like things are moving so quick nowadays, and that is something that I used to see even back, like I don't know, probably like I've been in naming and branding and domains for the past like 5 years, different spaces in that kind of realm. But before that, I had a software company, and we were building software and websites for people. And even then, and now that's like 10 times the time. You had like, you would make a list of things, a list of tasks, a list of whatever. By the time you've done 1/3 of them, the rest may not even be like relevant. Like people don't even care about this anymore. Like you've applied the 3 points, they've hit the real world, you've seen what's happened, and you have that feedback. So you have to completely rewrite that to-do list. But you have people who are like, nope, we have to finish the thing. And it's like, oh my God, I'm like hitting my head against the brick wall as a, project manager. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, why? But that is on a scale what is happening with a lot of people in a lot of things, and even more so now, because that was like in software 7, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. And now it's just like everywhere. I think you have to just constantly be aware and adapt to what is happening around. You just cannot stick to, whatever you decided a week ago even.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. And you look at the success and being able to be flexible, the amount of change that's happening, like anything could happen in the next 2 months that could revolutionize our whole internet, our whole,
absolutely.
And oh no, we call it the stubborn ego. Like, we have to do this. I'm so attached to my project in this way. Like, no, the more that you detach from it, I'm like, oh, let's go here. And that has been my journey. Like, I could tell people that I think I've lived 6 lives already. I'm not like I'm just 40. It's like an engineer, a conductor all the world. Now a psychotherapist that brought me back, and spiritual practitioner, and whatever. Like it's because I'm adapting to the change in myself versus let's follow this project of life that has been laid down by society, parents, culture, whatever. And I'm like, no, sorry. Like, and part of the process is I had to, any change is a death. A change is a loss. Like, if, let's look at COVID. That's a big change. I lost my ability to see people. I lost my ability to conduct music. I lost. And we're not conditioned enough. We're not trained enough to deal with loss. That's why you have consultant companies that only deal with change management. Like, yeah, now people will value that change. So how do we deal with change? And we're always changing. Our industry's changing. Like my career, my business is always changing. And it's only been like 2 years. I'm in a place where I've constantly scaled to a whole different area, because once I reach this point, all of these other things open. Well, do I take action or do I stay on this path? And the more I train myself, and I'm getting stronger and stronger, that, okay, I can go here. I'll figure it out. I'll get the necessary help in the unknown, then go. Yeah, it's
change is, very much entrepreneurship, I guess, and change. And that's something that a lot of people that are kind of, you were describing that at the beginning, where you like had everything that you thought will make you happy and it wasn't. And I feel a lot of people are in that position where you have that, story that, okay, do well at school, get a good job, get a house, get a car, get a wife, get kids, and then like you did it. You should be happy. And they get there, or they're struggling and not being happy until they get there, and then they get there and like, okay, that wasn't it. So then what? And in that respect, entrepreneurship, I feel, is a way out for a lot of people, not just because, like usually the solo entrepreneurs, so people that launch themselves into entrepreneurship are people who are pursuing their dreams in a way. They're like trying to do that thing that they always wanted to do. And obviously, if you want to do it, you have to make money somehow to be able to continue to do it and, do more of it. So I think it's like everything you just said about change and how we should be open and adapting to is very relevant in the business world, obviously, as well as in our personal work. So how do you help in what you're doing now, entrepreneurs deal with change?
I think that's the theme. I never really looked at it in this sense, but I help others, my clients, entrepreneurs, or actually most of my clients come in as, people wanting change, like real change, radical change, but they just can't take the steps to go through it, or they don't understand how to make the change. And they're really held back by things that make them want to change. And I've realized that, we can go through change on time is our biggest, most valuable resource that we never can get back. So we could go through traditional change and evolve, let's say over the year, over 2 years and 3 years, and you can, take that. But I realized, wait, I've been changing like lightning hyperspeed, like, wait a second, if I can do this, can I teach other people to do that too? And if I can scale, like if time is our most valued resource, what if I shrink what you can do in 2 years to a year or 6 months or 3 months? What would that be worth? What would that help? What would that save? And I begin to see, you see the laws of time. If you go a long time with something and versus I'm totally zero and I'm all in, I leave everything, you can really get such 10,000 times more result than that traditional route. So that's how I came up with Heal the Source. It was about scaling something on such a level that's have been seen impossible. So let's say a traditional model, it started with, let's say therapy, you come in $500, $100 an hour, you see someone, you get help, you get understand, you go through a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And I'm like, what if, and that's what my mentor said, hey, you're changing people's lives. Create something of really high value. What if they gave you 10,000? What if they gave you 20,000? What if they gave you $50,000 to help them? And I was like, no, what? No, you can't do that. That's too much. Like nobody can. I was like hyperventilating. It was a panic because our concept of money that a lot of us are conditioned is like, don't talk about it. It's not something. And that's why that shift from 9 to 5 is like, money is this way. It's controlled. There's a system. You don't have to deal with it. Versus entrepreneurship, you have to have complete oversight. You have to know how you relate to money, how you receive it, how you give it, how you use it, how you build it. Like that was my biggest learning journey at being an entrepreneur. Like, well, why do we do it? Yes, I want to create passion and love and dream, but it's about creating freedom, really. And the more money you have, the more free you have, usually in that sense. When I talk about sometimes you're emotionally, that's still not free because no matter how much you get, that's a whole different side. But overall, you have that capacity to be, I can fly anywhere, I can help anyone, I can live, in enjoyment. Okay. So this aspect of, okay, let's create something that's of that super impossible value. Well, if they give me $20,000, what's going to have to happen? how fast would it have to happen? They probably would have to like enter the heavenly gates, right? Or something. If they worked with maybe that much. But I stuck with it. So like, yeah, how would I create the heaven for them? And that's the radical change, to get them from a place where they couldn't, possibly imagine, to where they're like, wow. And so you go on the website and you see testimonials of people who've gone through that. Some people within weeks, like right now, working with someone who's on my 90-day, she can't believe it's 3 weeks. It feels like 3 years, like literally that, so my process of how we go through and manipulate time in ourselves by going to zero and letting go. It's like, I want this and I'm going to do whatever it takes for the highest good, of course. And we're focused on building that whole new mindset, way of being, that, again, it's about attachment. We're so attached to how we used to be, even though we want to change, our unconscious says don't change. It's death. It's scary. It's dangerous. So can you die to that self? Can you really go to zero with me? And I have a podcast called Zero to Infinity.
I was going to ask you about the name of that, because that explains it now.
Yeah.
Zero to Infinity.
So it's exactly my way of life. I get the most. So, how there's so many courses and gurus and mentors out there. And I found that a lot of people, and even myself, or people who want to work with me, they're not ready to, because they couldn't go to zero. They're holding on to a concept or an attachment or this. And I'm like, but for me, when I got my mentor, I went to zero with him. Everybody, whether it be my conducting one or my business one or my publishing one or even my spiritual one, I go all in so I can absorb completely their infinite years of experience and whatever they say. And I know my mentor, Jerry Robert, he'd be like, yeah, you're like me when I was with Bob Proctor.
It's funny because, sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just in this energy. I'm just talking. Please.
No. Yeah, I'm just saying so, but I'm like being the host here, so I'm trying to keep it down. But then I'm like, yeah, I'll do better. But no, because it's very funny because, like, in a way, you get to a point as an adult where, and you have to change. You realize you have to change, and generally, like, you change. It's almost like you change, life changes around you, so it's happening whether you like it or not. And there is that clash if you're not aware of it, if you're not flowing with it, that happens, and then you're unhappy. But when we're younger, there's so much weight put onto you have to be something. Like whether people are telling you what you have to be, or they're telling you have to choose something and be that thing. And I remember, like, when I was little, I've had, like, with my family and friends even, that was so much of a thing where people would say, well, yeah, but you're changing your style. Like you had to be like the smart looking one, or the goth, or the metal, or the rap, or the whatever, we're talking about, like, music styles and how you look, or what sort of people you hang around with. And it had to be one thing. And I'm like, yeah, but I can, sometimes I feel like one, and sometimes I feel like the other, and sometimes, and like, what's the problem? I was like screaming in my head, like, am I like fell on some weird planet? Like, why is not anyone understanding how weird it is to be that one thing in that box and stick to it? But it's what's most people do. And yeah, and in a way, I guess people get to you then at some point, if they're lucky, or someone like you, where they can undo that thing and get back to, you actually can do those things, even like on day-to-day basis, you can be different.
That is one of the biggest, like, blocks I think we have, because we're programmed and conditioned in the traditional system to say you have to be this. And somehow if we don't, that's the fear. Like in my book, I talk, there's only one fear. We only fear non-existence. We fear non-existence, but in the psychological sense, that's, you don't exist when I don't approve of you, when I reject you, when I criticize you, when I judge you. You're like, I don't like that. I'm fearing that non-existence. I'm shamed. I'm guilted. I'm whatever it is. Those emotions will tell us, this is not right. I don't like this. Well, how do I get rid of it? Let's follow what I need to do. I want to change how you think. So I'll change who I am to adapt to what you're saying. But that means you've completely thrown away your own power. But we're conditioned to do that. We're conditioned to have no power. If you think about it, we're working 9 to 5 for somebody in power over us, so to speak, right? But as an entrepreneur, you have full power. You get to control every aspect. And often, well, I forgot who said it, Nelson Mandela or someone, like we fear our own power. We're not used to it. It's the Stockholm syndrome. We like, it's easy. The prison, you feed me and I do some chores and I'm good. Right? But we're still in a prison. Like what would we do with ourselves if we had all the freedom? Same with the zoo and the animals. And like, they don't know how to operate in the wild anymore. So this aspect of being one thing, and of course, anybody who's really challenged with that, especially now when I was doing my branding, like one of my previous consultants didn't know what to do with me. Like, well, how do I get you from here to here to here? You're like 10 things that are drastically all over the place. But yet I'm all of those things. And the difference between, I think we can break through this concept. Instead of asking who we are, we're asking what we are all the time. What are you? What are you? What are you? Well, I'm not a thing. I'm a being. I'm a state. I'm a life. And for me, that's why I say 0 to infinity. Well, if I am me, then I have infinite possibility. I'm everything. I can be anything. It doesn't matter if I'm, the monk or the entrepreneur or the engineer or the musician. Like, I'm me. And that's the biggest challenge that we face. Like, how can we be me? Who am I? We just keep asking that question. And that's what's always going to be changing, because
who approved of me being me? Like who said I can do that?
Yes. But you do. But what you don't realize, we have the power. Guess what's happening everywhere? We listen. We're affected. We're influenced by the opinions of others. It's not that they have power. It's just that we lose it. We don't have it. Essentially, we still have the power to define ourselves. But what we've done is we've taken their version of us and say, I believe this. This is now me. Versus coming up with your own version of you.
Yeah. So, it reminds me of a case of one of my daughters. They both, I have 4 kids, but the girls are doing Krav Maga classes, and one of them on one of the last trainings came out, and she was like sad and offended and almost crying. And she was like, "Oh, there was that one boy, and he kept teasing me and saying that I'm too skinny and too weak." And my first reaction was like, "You're in Krav Maga class, like best place where somebody can annoy you because you can smack them. Like, it's literally your job there. You're in martial arts classes. They're annoying you, just hit them harder." But okay, that didn't help. But then she just went on and on with it for like good 30 minutes after, and I'm sitting there thinking, that's just so crazy that that boy that said those things, he must have like gone home, forgotten all about it, because he didn't put much into it. Like he probably doesn't even know her name, doesn't care. It's probably that type of character that says no annoying thing to everyone because they want to be noticed most of the time. But whatever, like, let's put it aside. Point being, he doesn't even remember that, whatever he said. But she's like carrying that on her little bag 30, 40, 50 minutes later, stressing out about it. And that's, if we apply it to, the adults and adult life, and we do that with so many things, like where we pick them around. Sometimes they were not even meant for us. We just decided they were, and we're like, carrying that and struggling with it. And it's like, why? I mean, why? Like, it's so crazy when you put it in simple terms, but it's a huge problem.
Oh, yeah, like, nothing does it better than social media.
Oh my God. Yeah.
There's no winning, really. Like, you want the like, and then you get the comment that dislike. Now you're going to think about it forever. But not even that. What if you get no likes?
Oh my God, that's even worse.
Yeah, because you create a belief of why, which never served you. It's amazing how, I think that's what my mission is. Like, how do we master our mind and our heart? How do we have control over what's really happening? Because we don't know, but we are choosing to take on something negative that doesn't serve us. But because it's out of fear, like, it triggered this response that we need to survive, because I'm shamed, right? So I don't exist. I need to be liked. But if we really look at that emotional layer, it's like, am I really in threat? Is there really danger? And you tap back into your power, and you're able to, hold space for that emotion versus needing to avoid it or solve it or get rid of it, which then the analytical mind comes in and says, oh, I remember that. Now I'm going to create the whole experience in my head once more, the same feeling. Oh, this boy, now I'm weak. Now I'm insecure. I go to class again. Oh, create again. Let's relive that. Let's relive that. Let's relive that. And then we do it so much that it becomes automatic and we can't escape it. So what we want to do is begin to create a whole new experience while you're in it. And like, I can hold this. What's really happening? Wait, I don't, that's not real. That's not belief. But why do I feel like so rejected, so shamed, so we have to cultivate the other feeling of you are accepted. You are strong. You get to be you. You because that just gets lost because we're just trying to survive from the fear. So that's essentially what I teach. Like, how do we master our own fear? Because if we do that, then anything's possible.
So that kind of leads to my next question. We mentioned, it costs $20,000 to work with you, but who would be like the ideal customer for what you do? Who could reach out and benefit from your services?
Someone who probably has seen and dealt with things and wants drastic, radical, awesome change quickly, effectively, and is willing to say, yeah, I've done enough. I'm ready for this. This is so important for me that I want it no matter what, but I don't know how to get it. But once you're in that state and you work with me, boom, it's almost like before you work with me, the moment you decide to do that, it's already happened. That's why I have this model. I mean, that's what my mentor did. If you invest that much or you go all in, something happens to your psyche that says it's happening. It has to. It's like you burn the ships. You're going to take the island. So people who are willing to do that. And I find that when I made adjustments or accommodations to people who were maybe not ready financially, or maybe I'm like, okay, let's start doing this. It doesn't work. They either quit or they don't take action or they don't jump in. And that's not that I don't want to work that way, but this is my superpower. Like, if you don't tell Superman to walk to the Arctic, like, just doesn't know why. Like, if I'm gonna fly, I would fly. Like, I can go light speed. If you want to do light speed with me, that's what it's gonna take. But there are thousands of programs and people out there that can do the bicycle or the walk or the bus. I'm flying. Too bad. I just realized I don't have time to waste. And for those people who think the same way, why not? Why not invest a huge amount in a very short time and get infinite results versus spread it over the safe way. It's just a different model, and I find that's me. And
it's a good analogy, yeah, with the bicycle and the flying, and like you said, it's not for everyone, and it's not for every stage. Everyone, like somebody may not be at that stage now and get there later. It's really, yeah, it does sound like you have to be in a certain space in your head to be able to go with that.
And you could say that would be my niche offering. There aren't that many people who are in that state. It's just because, but there definitely are people, and why not offer that to them if that's available? Because that's what I was missing. I looked all around and I'm like, this whole long-term traditional model, I'm not getting there. I need that huge amount of whatever. And that's the same thing on why I dove into Zen. Actually, the analogy was from one of the Zen masters. He's like, you can do Mahayana Buddhism, which is riding the bike, or you can do, Vajrayana, which is taking the bus, or you could go Zen and fly the plane.
That's funny, because when you say the word Zen, and people usually associate it with like slow and calm, and that it's really not that association.
Yeah, people say, oh, you're so Zen, you're so calm. But the entering into that process, like if we go back to the history, it's about resolve. Like back then, if you wanted to go in a Zen monastery, and my master was in one, and like you had to kneel outside for like days. It would be raining, and they would shoo you away. You're like, no, you're too old. We have too many people. Get out. And they're like, no, I'm here. It's like, that's the resolve. And same, if you want to work with me, that's the resolve. Like, no, this is not for everyone. You really want this? Show me why. Show me how. And then you'll get the awesome results, because that's what people want when they go through Zen, which is achieve enlightenment. To find that's why you're so calm. But enlightenment is a whole different story we'll talk about. It is not this, I'm this light being, I'm heavenly, I'm just floating around. No, it's a byproduct experience. Like enlightenment is just the present. It's not this awakening that, oh my gosh, light and rainbows and unicorns and all this stuff. You're like, no, that's the byproduct of feeling this awesome. But the awesomeness is just you. There's no, like they say, you.
I want a t-shirt with that. The awesomeness is just you.
Yeah, exactly. I love the Zen philosophy because everything is a paradox. It makes no sense, but it makes all sense. And the more you try to analyze it, the further away you'll get from it. And so the process of getting there, like doing these koans and meditating and doing these kind of things, is to get your body and your mind out of the traditional trapped human sense, the ego sense, and to break out of it so that you can be you infinitely. What are you? And so it's yeah, and why I came back, like, here's another analogy. It's like, well, once you achieve enlightenment, you're in heaven. You feel like you're in heaven. You're like, this is boring. What am I doing here? Okay, there's only so much bliss you can enjoy. And so I was like, okay, what do I do with this? Okay, you know what? As I've been like, you have to share this. Well, teach people. And that's why I came back. And I'm like, what's the easiest way to really get there? Like, people aren't very easy to take this pill of be enlightened. Nobody wants that. They're like, oh, I have kids to feed. I have work to do. So I entered it through psychotherapy, getting the license, getting the training. And that in a way is just help free people. And because ultimate enlightenment is being free to be you. That's it. So bringing that, it's like, am I free if I have nothing? Am I free if I have all this material stuff. So my whole concept of that has changed, because I'm like, well, to be spiritual in Zen, you have to denounce this. Like, who defines that? You know, who says that, right? I could say that, or I could say no. But usually it's people who have never even approached it define it for you. Oh, you think you're so Zen, then why are you rich? Like, what? Who are you coming up with this? Like, please. We're so quick to believe people who have absolutely no idea what they're talking about.
Oh no, I know. With I have another analogy from daily life of a 4 kids mother, but like I love the advice that people who have no kids give to people who have kids. Like it's just there's just yeah, tell me all about it. Just
Yes.
yeah, and then those same people when they have kids, you see how they are. Then it's like.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, what were you saying there? You know, remember how you said you were gonna or should do this or whatever? It's like, it's never the same. Yeah.
Oh, and this brings up, you know, so I grew up Catholic, right? So there's and the only thing I found so fascinating was how many times Jesus kept calling people hypocrites. You hypocrite, you hypocrite. Like, well, that's exactly what it is. You know, these Pharisees come in all like, you know, above everyone else. You should study and pray this way. And they're like,
yeah, absolutely.
Hypocrite. But that's what it is. And so if we can realize that, now it's the road less traveled. Sometimes it's very lonely because not a lot of people think this way and live this way. So I think that would be the biggest challenge, because all my, you know, past relationships, whether it be friends or acquaintances, or organizations, colleagues, that has drastically changed because I've drastically changed. And, you know, some people who can't align or meet me, then that's it. It's like, well, we got to graduate from kindergarten at some point.
Yeah.
You want me to play in the sandbox to relate to me? Yeah, I remember those days, but yeah, I know I want to go into space, right?
Absolutely. It's funny again there, we do refer to kids oftentimes because it makes all sense when you look at it from where you are. I see obviously that stupid kids, you know, like you telling the kids even, you know, oh, stop worrying about whoever thinks like you're not going to even remember their name in 2 years. And it seems obvious, even though for them it's like a tragedy that, you know, Mary said she's not going to play with me today. But then, like, why is it so much different in adult life? Like you just said, and I've had that experience many times myself on many levels, actually. Like on one level, you have people, you meet them in a certain setting or certain periods of their life. Time goes on, whatever time goes on, and then they expect you to do the same things, be the same person, and they're like offended almost if you don't. It's like, where did I sign that, you know, like, you know, I'm just like living my life, you know, I'm not like telling you how to live yours. Yeah. And that's I think a lot of people find that easier and safer to just stick to that, you know, like that person is expecting me to be that person knows me as that, you know, that's how I'm always been there. And it's really, yeah. And the funny thing is, we're talking about entrepreneurs. I don't think you would do that with a business, or if you did, it wouldn't survive. Like literally, it wouldn't.
Well, that's
exactly we do it with ourselves.
Why businesses fail. That's exactly why they fail. And you look at all. Well, you're in branding. How many times we go rebranding and reevaluating because something's not working? But often people will go to their grave with it not working and fail. Versus, you know what? I have to stop here. I have to do this. Let's change. Let's do that. And yeah, I'm in that right now. You know, I have to be, because that's me. Like, if I were the one type of person to stick with one thing, yes, I could probably build a business that would last sticking to one thing, and I could rearrange it. But I have healed a source at zero. Like, there's something else, and I have to go with it. I have to adapt the company to me, and there aren't very many that do that, right? It's like, you're told the model, stick to one thing and then people can relate to you. Sure. But I found that I was suffering when I do that. It's like, that's not me. Like if you look at Nikola Tesla, he's like, how many crazy things that he invented because he just stuck with him. He just went here, went here, went here, went here. But if he's like, oh, I'm only focused on electricity and you're just going to know me for electricity. But that's how somebody has painted him. No, it's like he's known for so many other things that people don't want you to know about because it would drastically change the world right now. And so that's me. Like I want to honor that. If I'm feeling this, then this. If this doesn't feel right, even if 1 million people are following it, then it doesn't make it. That's the only way, or that's right. So it's being able to honor your authenticness, and that took me a while. Like I had a lot of lessons I've learned that it doesn't really work. But why am I just depressed? Why am I stuck? And it's because I am changing. I have to honor the change.
So hopefully, like by the time we publish this podcast, people are still going to be able to find you on the website that we have.
Absolutely, I will never, turn anyone away, because ultimately, this is, on the grand scheme of things, it's about freedom and living your best self. So wherever I am, I'm still going to be doing that. So if that's what you want, and you want it quickly, you want it powerfully, and you want it, in a way that you're like, I'm ready to do whatever it takes, then I'm your guy. Cool.
Well, that's a great way to end that podcast with way over 30 minutes, but I think that was expected with that sort of a guest. That's cool. Well, thank you. That's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for making the time.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been an absolute fun, enjoyable. So until next time.
Thank you for joining us in this episode of Smart Branding Podcast. Feel free to visit smartbranding.com for more information and reach out if you have any suggestions, questions, ideas, or just want to learn more about how a good domain name strategy can help you build a strong and successful brand. See you next time.